Green River Killer, when evil wears the face of the mundane. Introduction. The silence before the scream, the 1980s. In the quiet, rain-drenched landscape of Seattle, Washington, the early 1980s ushered in a terror that was as insidious as it was widespread. The man responsible was Gary Leon Ridgway, a truck painter by trade, an unassuming husband, a mild-mannered churchgoer. Nothing about his exterior suggested he was poised to become America's deadliest convicted serial killer. The nightmare began in the summer of 1982. The banks of the Green River started yielding ghastly secrets. The first victim was found, then a second, and a third. The victims were young women, predominantly runaways or sex workers, individuals often marginalized by society, whose disappearances went tragically unnoticed by the public at large. This grim reality was the killer's most sinister advantage. Choosing victims society would be slow to miss. Chapter 1. The River's Curse. As the body count rose, panic seized King County. Law enforcement established a special task force, but the killer remained frustratingly elusive, a phantom. They dubbed him the Green River Killer. Ridgway's method was horrific and methodical. He would lure his targets with false charm, then brutally strangle them. Crucially, he was meticulous about body disposal, scattering remains across wide, remote areas to deliberately confuse investigators. He would often revisit the dump sites, a chilling display of perverse attachment, pausing his activity only to resume, leaving the police to wonder if they were hunting one killer or many. Detective Dave Reichert and his team were relentlessly tormented by the case. Imagine the crushing despair of countless failed leads, the endless press conferences, and the faces of the missing girls haunting every file. The investigation became so desperate that, at one point, authorities consulted with the notorious serial killer Ted Bundy in a grim attempt to profile the monster they could not catch. Chapter 2. The Invisible Monster. For nearly 2 decades, Ridgway lived a perfect double life. He passed lie detector tests, was questioned directly by police, and maintained his quiet job. He was a master of evasion, hiding in plain sight. The case went ice cold, becoming a painful symbol of unsolved injustice that spanned the entirety of the 1980s and much of the 90s. But science was about to deliver a verdict that time could not bury. Chapter 3. DNA's Retribution, 2001. In 2001, 2 decades after the first murder, authorities authorized a review of the decades-old evidence using cutting-edge DNA technology. Genetic samples, once useless, were now the key. The result was staggering. The DNA linked directly to one man, Gary Leon Ridgway. The quiet truck painter from Renton, the man who had been questioned and dismissed years before, was finally arrested. Chapter 4. The Devil's Bargain. Faced with irrefutable scientific proof, Ridgway made a shocking proposition. To spare himself the death penalty, he offered a grotesque bargain. He would confess to all his murders and lead investigators to the remaining missing victims' burial sites. The prosecutors, driven by the profound need to bring closure to the victims' families, reluctantly accepted this devil's bargain. In a series of calm, chilling confessions, Ridgway revealed the full extent of his depravity, guiding detectives to dozens of shallow graves. He ultimately pleaded guilty to 49 counts of murder, though he claimed responsibility for over 70, solidifying his place as a monstrous figure in American crime history. In court, his testimony was brutally detached, describing the lives of young women as disposable objects. Sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a series of consecutive life sentences, the Green River Killer was finally silenced. The case of Gary Ridgway is a haunting reminder that the most terrifying evil often wears the most unremarkable mask.